Welcome to It's a Controls Problem, where we do precision guesswork based upon unreliable data given to us by those of questionable knowledge. I'm your host, Charles Johnson. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of It's a Controls Problem. I am your host, Charles Johnson. I'm here with my best buddy in the whole wide world, Matthew. Matthew, how are you today?
I'm awesome. How are you doing, Charles?
Just wonderful. I'm quickly involved with my N4 class this week, so that is always fun. I actually had a student that decided that they were going to take my class because they wanted me to train them. They're not even a partner with LinkSpring. But they actually saw me present at Niagara Summit, and they're like, "Well, he's like, well, I want to train with him," which I thought was really cool. Like, it gave me a little tear. I was like, someone wanted me to train them. What?
You have a Padawan.
Yes, but enough about me. We have a very special guest here. I've known her for a little bit now through the LinkedIn, if you will, but she is none other than Diana Vargas, the program facilitator for Stacks+Joules. Diana, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me and for inviting me.
Oh, the pleasure is always on this side for our guests. We're always grateful that they take time out of their day to do this. So, to kind of just get into it, before you were shaping the next generation of building automation talent at Stacks+Joules, you were actually navigating the industry yourself. Sorry. So what was the exact moment for you early in your career that made you realize, how chaotic and misunderstood this field was there, or what can be to outsiders?
Well, honestly speaking, I have a background in fire and life safety, and I had no clue that they were correlations. I had no idea. And I did that for a little bit and then, moved on to creating my family and growing my children and all that. So I was out of work for a good 10 years. So trying to even get back into the work field and into this industry, man, it was just it's like pulling teeth, super duper hard. But when you do get a bit of a breakthrough, man, you have to just go with it like a charging bull, because if not, it's at any moment in time, you could just fall off and lose the momentum. And just trying to get into the industry, understanding that this exists, it's not, especially because we work with young adults, and we've had some older adults too, who like me were clueless of the industry. And then when Stacks+Joules kind of put things into perspective for both myself as a student at the time and any of those unsure adults that were taking the class with us, in the program, they were just wow, I never really took any of this into consideration. Comfort, cooling, buildings need to be, operational and have a whole team to get them functioning. And yeah, it's wild. It was a wild trip.
Yeah. When people finally understand how, you bring systems together, let's pray, we just turn things on and off. Well, yes, that in the most rudimentary sense, yes, that is correct. But there's so much more to really, take into consideration for it. So when you kind of, once you get to that deep dive of a lot of how nuanced the systems can be, I think that's where it really gets fascinating for you. You're like, oh, wow, I can do it that way. No, you absolutely can. Or you could do it this way, or you could do it this way. And when you realize that there are a lot of different ways to achieve the desired result, it just kind of blows people's mind for sure.
Yes, definitely.
So Stacks+Joules has really done some incredible work training people from non-traditional backgrounds for careers in smart buildings. So, when you're when you're introducing someone to a controller, if you will, or maybe a sequence of operations for the very first time, what is the biggest misconception they usually have about how buildings work?
I honestly think that for the majority, They just think that the thermostat is what controls everything for the most part. Like, yeah, you just press the button and it just acclimates everything. Great. Perfect. And nothing else has to work with it to make the room and the space the way we want it to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like that. And then understanding that there's some logic behind all of this stuff. Like our user-friendly end screen, like, yeah, that's the cake with the candles and the whistles and everything on there. It's ready for you. But behind that, it's like so much more nuanced, as you said. You know, there's like, you have to understand how these things need to work in order to operate in the manner in which makes it so easy for you to just hit a button, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I think I really like that explanation a lot. It really is. It really is a lot to talk about. One thing that I really admire about you is how you kind of took Niagara head on. And you're actually the one that's leading that. And it's always fun to see the students. Like as soon as I see one of your students showing one of their logics, or one of the, like, especially like the hot water pump. A lot of them use the hot water pump logic, and then they'll write a little blurb about it. I'm like, cool, connect. And I always try to give them a little piece of information from things that they see in there, or like, hey, how about thinking of it from this perspective as well? Because like what I showed students today was, we show them the T-stat block, and we talk about how the T-stat object works, and then I actually kind of show them, hey, you can actually build this T-stat without the T-stat kit control component at all. And I actually kind of went in and showed them how to set that up. And they were like, oh, wow, this one works much better. I'm like, I don't have to worry about that differential. I was like, well, I mean, that's kind of how it was designed to from the start. And it's kind of how thermostats actually work, in the real world. But, if you want something with more, with better control, we kind of switch gears there. But no, I really think that what you do there is super awesome with that, and I admire that about you for sure, because I was like, man, she really just took that head on, and she's led the charge, and so I think that your dedication is something that I wish that a lot of people had more of.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. I mean, in this industry, it's really important that everyone has that opportunity that we have in order to succeed. And that's what Stacks+Joules is really about, which kind of leads me into like my next question. So like we talk about, on the show about how tech is only good as the people that are running. And obviously you're building people from the ground up. So from your vantage point, what is the biggest human-centric challenge that's actually holding back this built environment right now? Like, is it a lack of technical skills? Is it like a communication gap, or is just the kind of like the industry like resistant to doing things differently?
Well, I think that it would be like a combination of the three, I would say, because in certain areas, it's for people coming in, it's like lack of knowledge, lack of awareness, right? And then it can also be that they might be aware of it, but don't know how to get an opportunity to better and learn more and, just expand or grow their career. Then there's also the mixture of companies and uncertainty in trying to implement and take a student of ours, for example, and give them a chance to like train them and see what their ability is. Because a lot of these people actually have the aptitude and the attitude. It's just that the chance is not there, And then on top of it too, if they learn a little bit too, like of anything, any of these controls, right? When applying to jobs, they'll see things like, oh, you need 3 to 5 years experience. And that alone just turns everyone off, like even me, It's just like, well, how are you going to have the chance to get that experience if they're not giving you the chance to train with them and understand what is the processes that needs to happen in order for these things to work efficiently effectively and handle, be energy efficient as well, because it's like a trifecta in that sense. So that's I would say the battle with just trying to get into it and yeah, making headway with careers.
Yeah, it really is disheartening to see, hey, we're all hiring, but you want experienced people, but some of those experienced people are out of your price range. So, okay, cool. So then at that point, we have to give people the younger chance. But, you pointed out, where do you get the opportunity then? Right? It's not just the classroom setting, but you have to give someone the ability to show you that you're worth it. Right.
Right.
So where do people leave and go to these controls companies that are hiring? Because everyone does look for experience, and I think it's kind of ridiculous among companies to do so. And sure, I know I'm probably going to catch some flack for that, but realistically, I get why companies are looking for it, but you have to grow the industry, and if you're refusing to help grow the industry by giving these people chances, then you are damaging the industry even out of yourself. So companies, give people more chances. Just please, don't worry about experience to a point. Understand that people can have a can-do attitude and they have the ability to learn. I'd rather take that any day of the week than someone that has 18 years of experience but won't listen to anything that anyone says. Absolutely
Exactly.
not. I'd rather have someone that I can train versus someone that I can't train. Now, speaking of training, though, when you're looking at the curriculum, or and I wouldn't say and training standards across the industry, what's the one critical skill or concept that you find that's consistently being left out, leaving kind of new techs exposed to when they're stepping on a job site?
Really understanding how you want systems and their accompanying devices, components, and stuff, how you want them to interconnect and maybe work together to get things done. Maybe it can be in the realm of understanding electricity.
Yeah.
I think that maybe that could be an area.
No, I think that's. I was actually going to bring up. Is it the physical aspect? Because obviously we're training them on the software, but there are very few. Unless you're going to Stacks+Joules or Pennsylvania College of Technology to understand control wiring, that kind of thing. I think I agree that I think that the actual physical aspect of putting things together is a big thing right now, because I know I get technicians that come in that don't understand the software side, but I also don't ask about what they know about hardware. I don't ask that. I don't ask them, what the purpose of a relay is, or how do they wire up something that's, half wave rectified versus full wave rectified? And, do I leave the ground floating? Do I not leave the ground floating? Do I use AC voltage, DC voltage? So I don't ask any of that, because I'm more of the software side than the hardware side. But I do think that a lot of training is not being done from the hardware side specifically. So I like that idea of the wiring, and I think that those are skills that you try to help capitalize on. In some cases, you're giving them a taste of everything, and then people will find what they really like. Some people really like the computer side. Some people really like getting their hands dirty. And I think that giving them the best of both worlds is, I think really a kind of a good recipe for training as a whole, and giving them, some of the skills that they need to come in immediately. Because there are a lot of people in the field that come in, they don't necessarily get that kind of training. They kind of just fly by the seat of their pants. I mean, it's because that's how the industry has always been done. But now that there are these opportunities to go ahead and change the industry and change the way that we are training, to change the way that people are learning, I think a lot of that's going to be happening. I'm actually in the process of creating a self-paced class, and part of that self-paced class
Really?
actually has a wiring. So like I actually have
That's
I
nice.
have a new tripod now that I'm going to take one of my cheap webcams that I have and just kind of shove it in there because it doesn't have the screw on there. But that's just
Hmm.
going to stand. That's just going to sit on top, and I have. I've got it right here. I've got some relays, and I've got wire. So yeah, we're going to be, I'm going to be showing them how to do all that because I think, that's missing at least from my training that I'm giving, especially for our product line, specifically. So I like the fact that
One,
that's what you're doing from the ground up.
one, one thing that just came to mind now too after discussing this was, so we have like students do a networking event, right? And they're tasked with like trying to build something on our panel that has like a J, some light bulbs, a thermostat, two fans, and a VAV striker combination,
Mhm.
right? And in that they're tasked with trying to build logic and then do its PX view and things like that. And some students, myself guilty as well, don't understand like you got to kind of have your picture painted of your system and what you want it to do before you create the logic to make it make sense and operate as you want it to do it, like as intended. Um, that was something that I did find myself like, that would have been good to know before this. And like just knowing how to approach stuff like that is something else. Like I understand like setting up some logic and stuff, right? Building the modules and the PX view and all that. But let's say if I wanted to create something on my own that might not even be realistic, right? Just the train of thought, like how would I connect X, Y, and Z modules to make my build do exactly what I want it to do? You know what I mean?
Yes. That's
Like temperature ramping.
yeah, that's a good scenario. And some of it eventually is intuition. And some of it comes from just experience after looking at enough sequences over time, and at that point, even then, it's just like each person can develop their own system in how they lay things out. So yeah, like I approach a job, I'm like, okay, cool. So like you said, so let's say we have the lights, we've got the VAV, we've got a wall or a thermostat that we've got to do everything first. Okay, well, I can either start from the software side, get that all going, but maybe something needs to change in the field right away. So then I actually focus before the software side. All right, let me go to the field side there and make sure I've got everything wired up the way that I need to. I've got them on the inputs and outputs that I need. I've tested that stuff out there. I know that that part's good. So now I can go back and focus on the software. And at that point, it's a matter of reading the sequence of operation, understanding what they're trying to do. And obviously, if there's an engineer in there, you want to keep them involved. But sometimes, we don't have that. And we are the engineers at that point. So
Yes.
some cases it's trial and error. You do the best with what you can, especially if you have existing sequences and whatnot. I always try to look for drawings. Like when I'm somewhere and they're like, "Hey, do we have drawings?" I don't know. Well, I'm going to go and look in the caverns and see whether or not I have that. And then if I do, all right, gold. And if not, like, well, I guess in the words of Bill O'Reilly, we'll do it live. And so, yeah, I think that people finding their approach is because some people will approach the software first and then get in the hardware side. Because typically, obviously, if you're in the office first, right, it's there. And then eventually the job gets ready in the field. And, I don't know if you know this, but this is kind of an interesting fact. So for every 1 hour that is done of engineering in the office, it actually equates to roughly 8 hours in the field. So, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because like you'll see a lot of control droids, field verify, field verify, field verify. And it's like, okay, well, now I need to go find the manual. Oh, the manual isn't there. Okay, well, let's go to Google. Oh, well, my hotspot doesn't work right now. Okay, well, then let me go to Starbucks and connect to their internet and do some research on there, right? So then the time that the engineer could have done that already in the field now, or already in the office, now I'm out there Now I have to stop. I have to drive somewhere. I have to do something this. I have to do that all at the same time while trying to keep all the balls in motion. It's like, I think it's like the equivalent of like spinning plates. And then like you're trying to keep them all, you're
All the
trying to,
little
yeah,
stuff.
you make sure they don't fall. Yeah, right. You make sure they don't fall.
Yep.
So I think that's actually really, it's really a good, I think that's a good way to think about it. And I hope that a lot of people actually think about it that way. Because, yeah, I think you're right. Having how to approach a job is really the big thing. And that, I think that comes in time with experience. And then, we can teach that. We can kind of teach like, hey, here's my system here. I don't know if it works for you, but then you
Right.
can, make the system as you will. And that's what I like to do. I like to give everyone a bit of everything. And then from there, they could take what they want from it or don't use any of it all. And they're like, all right, well, I think I've got that. So I'm not going to try my own thing and move forward there. So I think that's actually a really good one. And that's actually what I think would be a really good talk for your
Hmm.
students at Stacks+Joules too. So gives me some ideas to talk to them about experience in the industry. So
Well, we'd love to have you, and it's nothing but a Zoom away.
yes, yeah, that's right. I forgot that we can talk over the interwebs just like we're doing right now.
Yeah,
So
we've
yeah,
had plenty of people come on in like that.
okay. Well then I will shoot an email and get that set up sooner rather than later. Then so
Cold.
all right, awesome. So next question. Let's see. Okay, so we have Matthew loves to talk about AI, so we're going to talk about AI for a little bit. But we see a lot of hype around it, and we're seeing a lot of optimization software that really is going like hyper advanced for buildings. And so, if the baseline sensors are uncalibrated and dampers are stuck open, because we see that all the time, all that tech is useless. So, how do you teach your students to kind of look past that software and focus on the fundamental, like boots on the ground problems that actually keep the buildings running?
So my fast response answer would be have them learn to check the power.
Okay. Yeah.
A lot of people, um, want to check the logic right away. I'm guilty for that too. So at the very beginning, like I would, hey, maybe it's the logic,
Mm-hmm.
but 90% of the time it'll be like power failure
Mm-hmm.
because of a transformer, a frayed wire, what have you.
Yep.
But it'll be power related, and it'll be as simple as going with a multimeter, checking to see if it's pulling the right amount of voltage. They're printed on there, so you can't really go wrong. And then from there, you kind of like can say, all right, this transformer is blown. It's not doing what it needs to be doing. So all of this that we have in logic, it's for nothing if this device doesn't have enough power.
Is, yeah, I'm not really checking software first. Like if I'm at the customer, if I'm directly talking to the customer and they're in front of the computer, I'll take a look to see what they're looking at, and then I will go and locate whatever I need to locate. Like if we're online and communicating, then then it may not necessarily be a power issue. It could just be a wiring issue. It could be it could be the linkage that is broken on a VAV, for for dampers that are connected. It could be that the valve stem is kind of stuck, on a valve. So, there are a variety of things. But yeah, I would tend to trust the hardware first before I trust the software. And that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, I agree.
So how much does having a safe virtual sandbox change the psychology of how your students learn? And so does that freedom to fail without real world consequences actually help them become braver, and more creative problem solvers when they finally step out into the real world?
I would say 100% yes, because you see, where if you get hired for a company and you mess up a controller or logic that's already installed in a building, that's a pretty hefty weight of a mess up, right, on your shoulders, versus being in the classroom, having the space to go ahead and make the mistakes. It's perfectly fine because we can always just restart, right? It gives them the room to build a level of confidence, because I have noticed that a lot of people do the Niagara stuff, but like our training, but it's like they're walking on eggshells. They're scared of breaking the system, you know? And then it's like we have to reassure them, it's perfectly fine for you to make all the mistakes in the world with this, because you can't break it. It's just a simulation. It's not connected to anything real, and it won't mess up a building or something where you can feel like a heavy burden on yourself, like, oh man, I really messed this up, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So this definitely, I would say, builds confidence, builds certainty within themselves, that they understand what they're trying to achieve here, and the nuances that kind of are involved with doing that, and how much attention to detail is required. You know, that's another thing too. Some people have a lot of attention to detail, others don't. But I tell you one thing, with this Niagara stuff, it teaches that as well. Learning attention to detail, for sure, because it just takes one thing that you missed, or two things that you missed on these lab exercises, for that whole system, may it be the pump control or the boiler control, not to function or deliver the detailed information that we're expecting to see at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I love kind of like doing what Mike does, which is, oh, Mike gives you like a toy, a brand new toy, play with it, see what you could do with it. And then we'll reel it all in and be like, all right, this is what we're going to do with this. This is how we're going to go about it. This is how we're going to approach it, little by little. And we get there.
Yeah. So I tell people, if you aren't breaking anything, you aren't doing anything. You know, that's extremely true. Like, unless, like, you know, for me, if in the field they do something like completely catastrophic, I'm usually not like blowing a gasket over it. Several years ago, I was working with two people, and there were like 140 some odd rooftop units, and the instructions literally said, to enable the remote start stop, remove the jumper and apply your I forget the exact word. He said, remove the jumper from the start stop and apply your wires to the terminal. Don't know how you could have messed that up. They took the jumper off of the relay, off of the start stop terminals of the rooftop unit, that terminal strip, and put them across the contacts of my relay instead, but didn't wire my relay to enable the start stop of the unit. So at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and this is in South Carolina around, early May, and it gets really hot down here. So they were like, there's no cooling in our buildings. And it was two of them. So I had to drive 2.5 hours away to go look at what they did. Oh, I took a picture of it. I made a meme out of it. Like the nailed it meme. Yeah. Like, I could not believe that that's what they did. And I was like, how did you do it? And now I blew up about that, because after the first like 3 units that just stopped running, I would have just stopped. Like, okay, clearly I am doing something wrong here, but now I'm not going to repeat the same. Like, no, like something's got to be different, right? So to see that, but like otherwise, like if someone shorts out a relay, they pop a transformer or something like that, I'm like, okay, let's figure out where you went wrong and let's go ahead and replace that. I tell people, controllers have the magical smoke in them. While smoke is bad for humans, it's good for the controllers. And when you let the smoke out, you can't put it back in. But, even when you're giving, someone something like that in the sandbox area, that could still kind of be, jarring for them. But it only takes one time to make that mistake. And typically once that mistake happens, they won't do it again. And especially because even in a sandbox environment, there still can be some embarrassment that you did it, but no one else did, right? So it's just
Right.
like, yeah, all right, I'm glad that I didn't do it out in the field, but I can't tell you how many people blow up stuff all the time. I had someone that wired 120 to a bunch of controllers, and then just flipped the breaker on, and it went pow
What?
pow 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 pow. Yeah, just smoke going everywhere, and I was like, yeah, you're gonna get fired for that one. Like you're gonna
Oh,
that's gonna happen. But
oh man.
yeah, you're gonna see that. But no, I really think having that, I mean, that giving them the confidence to do that is really good. But I also think at times in the field, if you aren't breaking anything, you aren't trying. That's the way I like to look, because some people don't want to make the mistake, but I'm like, you know what? It's the only way you're gonna learn. And if you do it and it's and you can reproduce the mistake, okay, great. Now you know what not to do. But sometimes you're like, I don't know what I did wrong there at first, and then you have to go back and try to troubleshoot. So, so I got 3 more questions here for you. So where do you see this industry going in the next 5 to 10 years, in terms of how it values, how it recruits, and how it retains people who actually keep our buildings smart?
I'm not sure if I know enough of how people are being valued or not valued in companies, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
But as far as that goes, I think that so long as you're always trying to help the person better themselves in some way, shape, or form,
Mhm.
may it be through education, may it be through training, what have you, I think the value will be translated and will be good. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how they're doing recruiting,
Mhm.
but if they're only doing it based off of those, the requirement criteria that they're putting on job posts and trying to fit the best person to that,
Mhm.
I think that they could do better and open up the doors for more opportunities for newer techs to come in and kind of like, once again, just help with the economy and things like that. Right. So whereas your senior techs will be quite expensive, these newer techs maybe like half the cost of that or maybe even less, but they're eager to learn. And especially they'll be more eager to learn from those seniors that are looking to retire, because they have an invaluable skill of being able to hear these machines move and can pretty much tell you, oh yeah, the shaft is messed up on this device versus the damper is messed up on that device or what have you.
Mhm.
That's invaluable too. So it would be good for recruitment purposes if they were to do it in that sense of like, all right, yeah, you're a new tech, but you're going to be training with a senior, and this, and also mitigate, like you said, there are seniors that don't want to listen and don't want to try new things, and they're not for it. You know who your people are. You know not to match them with people with new employees, potential trainees, or what have you, right? Apprentices.
Mhm. Yep.
So, and then for, you said retention,
Yes. Yep.
showing people that they are valued. May that be through wages, may that be through anything, really. Anything that's going, again, help and better the person and help them grow their career. I think that would be, again, invaluable, and they'll be grateful for all that, because it's just sometimes just the chance alone makes a world of a difference.
Yeah, I think I agree with all that. Yeah, like even like yeah, as far as like valuing people, I think that's a tough one too, because like some people, it depends upon how, if your company, if your values align with the company that you're trying to work for,
Right.
or keep working for, and especially then if those values change because maybe they're going in a different direction. And so at that point, it's like, well, my values are no longer aligning with your values. Is this an appropriate relationship that we both benefit from, right? And then for me, as far as recruiting goes, yeah, it could be a lot of, sometimes it's from a headhunter, and and I have a lot of headhunter friends, which I think the world of, because they go out there and they get it. I tell you, they're working hard for that. But that also means that, they have a fee as well. And sometimes the people that are being recruited, that comes at a higher cost for them. So some companies just won't actually talk to someone that is working with a recruiter. They're trying to cut that cost. And even then, sometimes, while, and you hear this a lot with companies, there are companies that discourage from talking about salaries. It's obviously not against the law, but, they don't want that to happen to cause dissension in the ranks. But even at that point, it can feel some kind of way where, especially if you have someone that's been in the industry for, 20 plus years or whatever, and they're making so much, but obviously when they started, cost of living was so much lower, but now it's significantly higher, but maybe your salary isn't necessarily reflecting that. And now you're coming in with someone who has no experience whatsoever, that's making, let's say making 30 grand less than you are. But if you think about it in terms of, they think of just terms of straight dollars versus, what it would have been back then versus what it is now. So now all of a sudden they're coming in and they're like, well, you know what? I should be making more than that now. So now that's causing some tension in the older generation, because it's like, well, if someone's coming in making 80, making 70 grand, and I'm only making 100K, yeah, that's a $30,000 difference. But while that may not seem like a whole lot, in some cases it is, because 30 grand is 30 grand. I mean, I'd like to have 3 stacks of high society in front of me right now. I'd be pretty happy with that. But when you're thinking of it from the benefits that come in then and whatever, and you're like, this guy has no experience, and it took me, 15 years to get to $70,000. Now this guy's coming and making 70 grand. Well, then hell, I should be making 140, for whatever. So then all of a sudden now you've got now you have the more experienced people that are demanding more money, and it's just not there. Right. So that I think that's super tough to deal with. But I really love the idea, and it's something that I preach to companies about. Is you mentioned about younger guy, you're getting paired with an older guy, and well, I say guy, but person, it doesn't matter, male, female, right?
Right.
Young person, here's old person, both of you work together, right? I think that is invaluable, and that should happen. But sometimes, unfortunately, then again, the older generation feels like they're getting replaced by the younger generation. That's not necessarily the case, right? You're right. They see it as a threat. And so because of that, now they're gatekeeping that knowledge. And it's like, no, I'm like, I don't want to climb a ladder forever. So I'm going to need you to do that as I transition to, like, let's say a project management role, which I hate doing project management, but you get where I'm coming from there. And then I also think about the retainage. Yeah, you're right. Bonuses to do whatever. But obviously, if a company's not doing well, that's hard to, that's kind of hard to do. But I think that there are trade-offs there. Like, okay, well, I can't compensate you, monetarily, but maybe now from some of this extra that extra work you've been doing, maybe here's a couple additional days off in your thing. Yeah. So, that's, you're right. Those are some trade-offs that can absolutely happen. And I think that, I think that we'll kind of see that happening here soon, because as controls is not a 9-to-5 job. And now, especially, we're approaching summer. So school systems are going to be ramping up on projects, lots of overtime that's happening and whatnot. This would be a great time to get students in, to get them going and to kind of hit the ground running in these school systems. I couldn't imagine working in a New York school system, because I've heard horror stories about some of the conditions, and I used to live in Baltimore City, and I definitely did work in those schools, and I definitely know some of that, but I couldn't imagine some of the stuff that you could see in some of the equipment that you'd be working on there versus other things that you would see like around the country. So, but I think it would be nice for them to see some of that really old equipment too, because now they can see how things were built back in the day versus how things built are now.
And so how much of physical demand too.
Yep. Absolutely.
Old school boilers with like the holes that go. I don't even know how to explain it, but it's just forever with the bristle brushes. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. You're
That's crazy. I had a friend that worked in a school and they still had that at the time. And when he showed pictures on like Instagram and stuff and Facebook, I'm just like, wow, they still have that? That's wild.
Oh yeah, yeah. There are sometimes you walk into a building that seems new, but it really was just a retrofit, and you're like, how is that actually running? Charleston Water System just recently decommissioned their last boiler that was 110 years old, which is 110. That's amazing.
Got some time.
But yeah, they just recently
Yes.
decommissioned it, and I was like, wow, because I actually worked on one of them. When I did a project in the water system there, I was like, wow, like, okay. Yeah. So you do see that a lot.
That's so cool though.
We talk a lot about opportunities. So for business owners that are, they're listening to us, or contractors or engineers that are kind of just listening here and realizing that they desperately need that kind of talent that you're developing. So how can they get involved with, so I like this question, like, how can they get involved with Stacks+Joules? So like, what does like a successful partnership look like between you and them? And how can those businesses start supporting your mission with solving their own talent shortages?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is being available to do a mentorship with some of these students, right? Where it's not like you're opening doors for them and like pushing them through. It's more like kind of like helping them develop their professional side to know how to operate and navigate this new arena of a job. May that be in a field tech, controls, project managing, UX designing, whatever it may be. Sometimes not having experience in that type of space feels weird for a new person coming in. They don't know what they should and shouldn't do. How should they like move? Who should they, speak to? Who should they not speak to? So I would definitely say being more welcome, I'd say, and kind of just looking to do an internship, looking to understand maybe what this person is looking to do for their career, if it's in controls or what have you, and then like help guide, give them a sense of like which way to go, so to speak, because the industry is large. There are so many avenues, right? So much capacity to go in any which direction they choose to do. Like we've had students go to procurement and logistics, right? Then field technicians, then junior commissioning techs, and so on and so forth, for architectural firms. And it's just a very open space, and if you don't know how to navigate it, it's like, well, what do I do?
Yeah. Well,
especially for the younger adults.
Yeah. That's actually that's actually a really good point there too. I just thought about that. I think because I think also you invite companies, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong on this. So if I'm wrong, just please let me know. I think if I'm not mistaken, there are companies that actually come out to like the graduation day or something like that. I think Jonathan mentioned, yeah. So like, I think if they find out the schedule as well, that they come to the graduation and then they can actually see, some of the talent that's being produced, because they do a lot of great stuff, interacting with some of your students, at least on the LinkedIn portion, seeing that, that they're building 3D renderings of walking into buildings and kind of stuff like that, attempts to, how they're building logic or graphics and whatnot. And like, I was seeing one of your students, they use the old R2 KitPX, the KitPX HVAC graphics. And, some of you were like, oh, they're ugly graphics, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, guys, you're missing the point of what he's trying to do here. And so then that's, I was like, okay, and I gave just a history of why, why those graphics even existed. So like I wasn't critiquing his graphics. It was like, hey, yeah, I could see that you actually, chose to use these. And here's why they're actually still there, because of the original R2 system that used them. And I can't tell you how many people I see that actually still use them today, which is wild to me, especially because of how old I've been in the industry, because like I've seen the evolution of their graphics, but the students that are coming in, they don't know. So they're just grabbing whatever they can because they can see it, and they're building them because they're like, hey, look what I'm doing. And then to have somebody like, oh, well, those are crappy graphics. Like, are you serious right now, guy? Like, no, like I'm like I and one of the people that commented I knew personally, and I kind of sent them a DM. I was like, hey, it's not what he's doing there. So, and they actually ended up removing the comment. I was like, I think you should remove that comment, because it's not what he's trying to do. He's not trying to say, hey, he was just saying, look, here's what I built. Like, look at it. Like, I did a thing, right? So like, because like that's also disheartening, because and that's also another reason why I do hate a lot of social media, because you just get these haters that come out and are like, there's always a naysayer in the crowd, regardless whether or not you're doing something right. Someone is gonna, someone's gonna hate it. Like Cat Williams said, if you have 10 people that that are hating on you right now, by the summer you need to figure out how to get to 12. Like,
right.
But all kidding aside, they're these kids are impressionable that are coming out, and even some of the older, and even some of the older adults that are coming in, where we don't bounce back as easily as we used to when we were younger. Like, we could face rejection and be like, all right, that's okay. I'm going to get up and I'm going to do this the next day. Well, now all of a sudden, you get hit, you go to the mat, it's a little harder to get up. So those, there are generational differences in the fact of how we grew up versus, or the experiences that we have versus the experiences that they don't have right now. So I think maintaining that level of positivity is also really good too. So yeah, I would suggest that they come out and see what they have accomplished and really it's not that long of a time that you're working with them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, over that time, look what they've accomplished. To me, that's an amazing thing right there. That's where I would focus on. Yeah, you're welcome. That's where I would focus if I were, a building owner. Like, wow, look what they're trying to do right now. Okay. Then talk to a few of them, like, hey, where do you think, what did you like the most versus what you didn't like? Well, I really think I like this idea. Okay, great. Now come along here. Let's go ahead and like from the Goonies, like you belong with me now, right? Like,
like come right under the wing.
Yeah, exactly. So
you get the purpose of the build and all that.
Yeah.
It's not about what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
It's just about what you're trying to achieve here.
Yep.
And if you successfully did it.
That's right. That's the most important thing. And I, when I'm training, I try to tell people, like, look, the end result is what matters. The fact that you got there is nothing more than an accomplishment. Like I as far as like, I don't know how far you take them into the Niagara training, because obviously I haven't seen that yet. But obviously I see some things that that I teach, because like you're teaching from an older manual that's teaching like using like the discrete totalizer extension to do runtime and stuff like that. We don't really teach that anymore, and it's not because it's useless or anything. It's very useful to do. But obviously, we're streamlining things more. But like, again, I don't know where you stop. So maybe you get to like just that point and you show like a little bit of this, show a little bit of that. Because obviously, that's a week long class in it of itself. But obviously you're teaching so much. So like, I don't know where you get, but for the people that are actually doing it right then, they're like, hey, that's a great job there. So
yeah, we try to just wrap up the labs with creating the PX views. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much it.
Okay.
For like the heating system and things like that.
Okay.
But that alone is, it's lengthy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It can be confusing. The instructions can be very confusing for some people who just, where was this again?
Yep.
So, just the fact that they're even attempting to handle a beast of Niagara like it is, because it's so open, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's, for me, I just think that it's so valuable to understand that side too.
Yep.
You know, not only just the hardware, the software, like they're always together and working in tandem.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to get the best of both worlds.
Yep. And you're also teaching them Delta as well.
Yeah. So
because you guys have a whole building, right, with Delta controls in there, I think, or a portion of the building.
It's a portion of the building because of the way the building is set up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we do that in our internship. It's called the Dab Lab internship.
Okay.
So in that portion, we first do the Delta training.
Mm-hmm.
So they're learning about exactly what you mentioned earlier, right? The half wave, full wave,
Mm-hmm.
oscillation, all the controllers that they have on file, how to make them work in a controller topology, you know, make things, send messages and things like that. But then that's just like a training platform, right?
Okay.
Then we see the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we have some Delta controllers in the building, and then some EB managers, and they are like just controlling, what is it? ACCUs,
Mm-hmm.
DOAS system,
Yep.
air handler, and FCUs, and then the thermostats.
Okay.
And then the boiler control downstairs as well. So
Okay.
yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to see, you know, and then to see the data being translated on the Delta IntelliCloud.
Mm-hmm.
So for like data analytics, and they're able to see those changes of, let's say, for example, why this ACCU just stopped running out of nowhere, you know, but yet it's still pulling amperage,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not providing what it needs to be.
Yep.
You know, so it's just that whole story alone. You see all the like dead spots, Wi-Fi connectivity. You know, we're depending on Wi-Fi dongles to translate that data. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it gets crazy, but it's interesting, and you can learn from it, and you can learn data analytics as well.
Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And then I
Yeah.
was just gonna say, and then we're doing the Revit building information modeling as well.
Yes. That I saw that was super cool.
Yes. The latest extension build up on that was tasked the last class with build out this gym now too. Not only are you tasked with doing the boiler room and all of its components that live in there, I want you to do the gym, because the gym is awkward.
Okay.
And I purposely tasked it that way. Like those crazy high ceilings, ridiculously high ceilings with some diffusers and, you know, just things like that, just to try to move them away from what they're building in mechanical stuff. Let's try to find some electrical stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, like, you know, showing the differences of Niagara with block programming, and then when Sam from Distech comes in and he's showing them GFX, well, now all of a sudden they're going back to line code, where I know where they're starting to use Python to control lights.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now they're looking at GCL plus through like IntelliWeb, or, you know, or I mean, I don't think anyone uses Orca anymore for the front end, but yeah, like if you're using IntelliWeb to do that. Now I don't know if you have Niagara modules that are looking at that stuff either, but like if they're just using IntelliWeb, now it's a whole separate system now that they're dealing with and seeing the different types. And you're right, half wave versus full wave, because some of the DACs are half wave, some are full wave. And so if you're using AC voltage, you need to make sure the ground is floating. But if you're using DC voltage, well, then you're good regardless. But like if you're using all that kind of stuff, because like our controllers, we have some that are half wave and some that are full wave. And so you need to make sure that that's really important to understand. Or even like ribs, functional devices make some ribs or some relays that are half wave, and some that are full wave. And so like they let you know, like, hey, this is a full wave device, so you gotta treat it better. So yeah, absolutely. The Revit stuff I think is super awesome. Like watching them do that, because I saw one of the video or two of the videos that they were doing, because I think you filmed the presentation as well.
Yeah, I filmed the secondary the previous class to this one's presentation. I did not film this one though.
Okay.
Should have done it, but I failed that one there.
No, it's okay. Hey, but the fact that you even showed the one of them, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I thought that it was also like it speaks to what we do. You know, it's not like only field tech controllers or only controls technicians. You can go into architectural things, right? Architectural building modeling, and that's a whole nother like world in itself. And it's so interesting too. But then you got to kind of have that knack for wanting to be on a computer all the time. And you know what I mean?
Yes.
So you have to dedicate so much time to that.
I hear you on that one. I sit in front of a computer all day, playing with things like you could see like in the background here, like I've got like a bunch of cables that I'm going to need to redo because I actually got a bunch of DIN rails. So I'm actually starting to mount all my controllers on the wall. So I've got to clean that up. But
gotcha.
I have one more question for you. And this actually leads into, we've kind of had a great segue into this. So looking at the graduates that you're sending out in the workforce today, what gives you the most optimism about the future of building automation, and how is this new generation going to redefine what it means to solve controls problems?
You know, a lot of people, a lot of adults, I would say, have this thought that the younger generation doesn't care about the world, doesn't care about anything, to be honest with you. And from working in high school, working with young adults, and then working with adults, right? I have noticed that they're so wrong. They're so wrong. They are interested. It's just that their approach or the way we approach trying to get them interested is just different, right? I have noticed that for some, it's like getting their hands on something and just playing with it it's like, I'm not doing anything. What's the point of this, right? Then with others, it's like, well, what does this thing do exactly? How much can I get done with this? You know, where would this be implemented? How would I know this is doing so well? Or what is it going to be used for? Those type of people flourish the most because their curiosity never stops. You know what I mean? And that, I think, like, changes perspective for people. Once they're actually able to do things, maybe create a light show, make those lights jump to their beat, right? Mm-hmm. Or really get the refrigeration cycle and hammer that EPA test on the first try. That level of like want, grit, I'm willing to go for it, is what sets people apart. And yeah, the young people, they have that, and they're willing to do it. It's just the way you get it out of them. It's different from person to person, you know?
And I do think that the older generation writes the younger generation off because they can't understand. You know, I'm 43, so technically I'm considered an elder millennial. I'm on the cusp of where Gen X was, but you know, I'm definitely nowhere near a Gen Z or what's the new generation after Gen Z? I forget what it is, but Gen Alpha, right? I think is what it's called.
Yeah, you're right. I was gonna say, I don't know. Then you said Alpha. I was like, that's what it was.
so you know, I grew up in the first part of my childhood. I didn't have the age of the internet. So like, you know, as far as the technology side went, I didn't really have that. So like when I started, when I got in when I was 10, because my dad got me in it, I would go around the office and so I cut my teeth on controls from a young age. But even then, it was still in the days of like 186 and 286 computers. And then eventually we got to 386 and 486 processors. And then eventually we got into the days of AOL, that old dial up. Yep. Exactly. And so like, you know,
that was my time.
Yeah. So like we kind of gradually came into it where now even the younger millennials, the Gen Zers and the Gen Alpha, they've been so immersed in the technology that we may not necessarily know how to relate to that because that's all they know. Well, Diana, I have no more questions. And this has been, I think, a great, a great interview overall. And so really, I do thank you. And I know Matthew thanks you a lot for being here, taking time out of your day. And again, guys, really support Stacks+Joules. It's a great cause. no, I don't believe you're in your data set because like 57% of the people like mayonnaise or something like that. Yeah, there's a whole thing about mayonnaise. So